Welcome everybody. Peace and love to all my gods and earths. Salam alaikum. Alafia. This is Malik. I'm your host. Welcome to Grunt TV. I'm your host, Malik Shabazz. And I'm here with a special guest by the name of Kuri Biti Shah X Ali Rashid. And we're going to have a lively discussion about the Republic of New Africa and the Black independence movement. Before I go on, I want to start with a quote, and actually I was having a little discussion right off camera, so I'm going to quote Gen Rashid's quote that he said that he says to himself every day before he leaves his house, and that is the one by Frederick Douglass. Said, "Without struggle, there is no progress." Right? So exactly. So struggle doesn't necessarily mean anything violent. It's just that constant dialectic of life where things are always being challenged and things are always being improved, and sometimes things are even being going backwards. So that's how we do over here at Grunt TV. Again, for all my people out there, please subscribe, and mash that like button, and don't forget to leave your comments, and please share. Anybody out there that's looking for some information, not new information, because a lot of the stuff that we talking about ain't really new. It's just been taken down through history that was passed down to us, and now we're passing it out to the next generation. So anyway, welcome Gen Rashid. You can just talk to the camera, and and you can talk to me as however you want to do it. This is there's no script in this podcast. We ain't got no script. We ain't got no people say this, say that. So we're talking just straight from the heart. Straight from the heart. So before I go on, before I let you even talk, let me just, in fact, you know what, better yet, I want you to tell the people, who is Kuri Biti Shah X Ali Rashid?
Free the land. Kuri Biti Shah, in terms of New African Independence Movement, which was born with the provisional government of the Republic of New Africa. I was the 99th signer of the Declaration of Independence for the Republic of New Africa. And at that time, I had not changed my name. My name at that time was Ulysses S. Garth. That is my slave name. And so in 1971, I had my name changed for political and religious reasons. And since 1971, based on the FBI report, that's what they use. They don't use my slave name because there was things that happened under the slave name they probably don't want people to know, in terms that they don't want people to know that before we got totally conscious, we was aware of our conditions.
Okay. So what's your origin of birth? Like where were you born? What state?
I was born in Alabama.
Alabama.
Yeah.
Okay.
Slave state.
Okay.
I know they said the 14th Amendment changed that, but we didn't get the white folks' attention until 1954. that we actually believed that we had some rights.
That's what's up. Okay. Since we only have an hour, and I always remind people that we can sit here. In fact, we talked for about almost 45 minutes right before we got on camera, because we could talk about so much and it could take so long, but just for the sake of time frame, for those out there that may not have the attention span or may not want to listen to a 2 or 3 hour conversation, it's broken up into hours. So we're gonna move forward. There's this provisional government that's called the Provisional Government of the Republic of New Africa. What's that about, and how did it get started, and why did it get started?
There was a lot of people talking about different parts of that throughout history, including Frederick Douglass. Just said it another kind of way.
Okay.
But what happened were a lot of people have forgot about, because they weren't born in the South in particular, they have forgot about the land, and a lot of our people left the land, didn't pay the taxes, so Europeans took the land back. We had 21 million acres of land at the end of slavery. We probably got about 2 million with all of the 46 million people now. So land is important, and we learned that land was important to build a nation state. So we found out that no states that we know came about by itself, because land is the smallest element that we have in the whole concept of mankind. So it's always a struggle for the land. And there's some things that we need, you know, to be a nation. You know, we need to have a population that basically speaks the same thing. We need to have a government of some kind. You can call it a council or anything else. And you have to have the land in which those people have resided on for a long time. That constitutes a nation. All this other foolishness about you got to do this and that and the other is basically a European concept. When the Indian nations, when they said that there was nations, the Cherokee might have had 10 or 15 different other so-called tribes. In fact, the United States learned this whole concept that they do about conventions and stuff. They got that from the indigenous people here.
Okay.
It's the women in the so-called tribes were the ones who polished everybody just like politicians do now. And then from these different tribes or nations, they would present their sons to be the chief of all of those nations that came together. In the West, you might have 15 different nations that, you know, consider themselves as Apaches. In the East, you might have had another kind of group of people, but they came together. And this business about Thanksgiving is something that I always like to remind our people. We was having the gathering of the crops before this man was even thought of. We was doing it. They called it Thanksgiving, but we was doing this in the indigenous part of our family. So get up off that thing about Thanksgiving and learn the history of how they took it away from us, like they took the whole political philosophy that they have in the United States today came mostly from the indigenous people who was already here.
And we could say the same thing about Kwanzaa, can't we?
Yes, yes.
With the gathering of the crops.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, just a different kind of version of it, but it's
Right.
the same concept.
Right.
And they was doing it before they got here. They called it Thanksgiving because the Indians saved their butts when they had a big storm up in the northeast, and everything got blown away, and the Indians pulled them together and fed them, and of course they showed them how much they respect them by killing them all.
I want to put something into historical context because I think it's a great way to understand things, especially my relationship with General Rashid. I've been in part of organizations since 1992 up in New York, and then when I got to Florida, it just so happens that I went to a little community film night, and the projector was having some problems. I don't even remember, but I remember the projector was having some difficulties. So it was myself, Brother Kamani, and Brother IET Blues. Three of us are poets, so we saw the people getting fidgety because everybody was waiting on the film, and the film was going to be on Malcolm. And Gen Rashid, I didn't know him at the time, but he's behind the camera, and because he records everything, so he's a historian right here. And so while we did our poetry, we got to talking as they were fixing the projector. I come to find out that General Rashid was in the Nation of Islam, and I was raised in the Nation of Islam. So that right there, that was connection that we had. And then from there, he introduced me to INCOBRA, the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. And then he introduced me to the Republic of New Africa. And I don't even remember if you recall, but I joined right away. I was like, this is what I've been waiting on the whole time. This is what I've been waiting on. I still got the shirt, still wearing the shirt, still free to land. And so, yeah, so, and I just want to say one other thing, so then I'm passing on to you some questions. A lot of people, one thing that the bourgeoisie press and the bourgeoisie academics like to put into our brain computer is that as an individual, you're not as great as Malcolm, or you're not as great as King, or, individuals. But I remind people that we give those people power. And it's actually a symbiotic relationship because then we absorb their strength and their courage from them. So it's a symbiotic relationship. So just because a lot of you out there may not know who General Rashid is, trust me when I tell you, this brother right here, this elder, this Baba, has been in the struggle for many, many years, has seen many victories, many defeats, and at his age, and if he wants to give that age away, he can tell the people himself, but at his age, is still out there with the people, marching, feeding the people, teaching the people. And so I don't want y'all to think that, oh, well, I don't know this cat, because he's not known. You need to know him. And if you need, and then we give you, at the end of this interview, we can provide information if you want to know more information and get some more information from Gen Rashid. I just wanted to say that because, again, like I said, we got this thing in our mind where we think that, we're made to believe that we're not as great. I mean, I'm not to take nothing away from Malcolm and King and Harriet and all these great soldiers. They were great people. But without the people, there would be nobody. Because if nobody listened to Muhammad Ali and nobody went to his fights, he wouldn't be the person he is. And the same thing with Malcolm and Elijah and everybody else. But the bourgeoisie press makes you feel inadequate, so that way you don't struggle. Because they make you feel like, oh, I'm not as great. No. Dr. King said, everybody's great because everybody can serve. And that's the key. So on that note, Gen Rashid, what was your role in the founding and the development of the Republic of New Africa?
First of all, I come from basically the gang element. Not like it is today. We were making money.
Okay.
We just got tired now of killing each other and they making no money. And we very seldom killed each other. I mean, we had fist fights and all that kind of stuff. But next day we was out there, well, back then shooting models was a great thing. But in terms of me, I don't have any problem with my age. I was born December 9, 1936 in a log cabin in a place called Panola, Alabama.
Okay.
So I don't have any problem with that. But what I realized, I joined the Nation of Islam. Kind of got me straightened up in terms of the gang thing.
Okay.
What I realized, looking at Donna Elijah Muhammad and many other leaders, and they were going to have some protection. Well, they said, well, we already got the fruit. I said, but they don't have me, Well, what do you want to do? I want to be low profile. I've never liked public display until it was necessary.
Okay.
And so I chose to be a soldier. I was close to many of the people that we talk about. I knew Martin Luther King, his brother. I didn't personally know Malcolm, but I did security for him. And I did security for Donna Elijah Muhammad. So in terms of what people think you are, it is what you think you ought to, it's what the service that you think you need to give. I felt that historically I had been through the Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazis and all of those folks down in Alabama. Saw many of people killed, saw two brothers hang with their penis in their mouth. That really, really, really shook me up. That really changed my outlook. And by the way, I was about 5, no more than 6 years old when I saw it. And the bad thing about it is I couldn't talk about it. I thought that I was telling my parents something that was monumental to them. And the fear was there. My mother, I was in church, and this is the thing that changed my whole perception of Christianity, not knocking people who were Christian. And I know my mother did it because she wanted to save us. I was telling her about what I had saw, and she told me to hush, don't talk about that. But I had remembered that the Sunday before, and I'm just going back, I'm telling you how I developed into who I am. The Sunday before, we was in church, and the subject was tell the truth. And I had to sit up there and listen to that for 2 hours, people crying and whining. And that Monday morning, I go and see these black brothers, again burnt. You could smell the stench of the bodies, and being a small kid. My grandfather, with his Indian descendancy. He loved the woods, so he took me out. So 4 or 5 years old, it wasn't no big deal in Alabama for a young cat to be out there. But that whole thing right there with my mother telling me to shut up, don't talk about it, but that Sunday morning I was confused. And ever since then, by the way, I've been confused with religion. Because it's not because I don't believe, it's because of confusion. And I don't know how you can truly say you believe something if you're confused about the results. And what happened after that, as we grew, we got to the point that you couldn't question the preacher, you couldn't question the imam, you couldn't question men who was only put here to bring us a message, to give us a greater awareness, because that's the way the Creator do things. All of us can't be imams. All of us can't be professors. And I learned that from Dr. Overdella. He gave me a big whooping about me talking about I didn't know certain things. I learned to stop doing that and start measuring what I did know. And so ever since then, I have been into religious issues. I still consider myself as a Muslim, but I'm still concerned and confused about a lot of things, because I think we live in a time that the Holy Quran was talking about. It said that this is the religion of the believers. Those that who believe in what has been, those who believe what it is, and those who believe in the future. If we're living in the future and we can't talk about it, or we can't question some of our leaders. That's the reason we haven't manifested the whole thing that we're that dry bones in the valley. They're talking about us. We're that rejected brick. They're talking about us. We're that hated group of people. That's who they're talking about. We're the Jews that they was talking about. We're in that foreign land that they was talking about. Nobody had ever been here as so-called slaves, but the Indians didn't have slaves, so they didn't have that concept. If they did something wrong, they just killed you, you know. That was the way it worked. So we had to learn that from somebody who wasn't talking for the benefit of our people ourselves.
And who is Dr. Mario Videlli? And again, to continue that flow, and how did you get involved with him, and what was your role in the Republic of New Africa at the beginning?
Dr. Videlli, first they got in contact with Gen Rashid. I had kind of knew about the Henry brothers because of some of the relations that particularly Milton Henry, Brother Gaidi had with Malcolm and that whole kind of thing. So we had a group at that time. We wore the leopard, and we had leopard dashikis and military pants, and we had in these dashikis we had a gun pole in front. And so we was one of the few groups that started having actual rank and started recognizing international law, because Gen Rashid was one of the original black flyers that was presented in World War II. Although he never got a chance to do anything because they went down to Alabama and tore up a theater because they wouldn't let him get in front. So they sent him to Guam, somewhere away from the whole action. After that, we was invited to deal with the Malcolm X Society and different ones. And so when they decided that they was going to have a nation-building concept, all of us throughout the nation were threatened not to come, that it was going to be a bloodbath in Detroit. We went. We took the young people with us. We went. And people said there's 500 people there. They was talking about the delegates. They was talking about the people who had organizations and that kind of thing. Because the military had that whole thing flooded. And some of the people who was so-called military were gangbangers. But they believed somewhere at that point, somewhere in the history of universal blackness, that everybody from Ron Karinga to Leroy Jones to Rap Brown, I'm just calling them by the names that they books and stuff were wrote by. I'm not calling them about what their change were, because I wasn't in that change. I'm still like those same leaders who perpetuated all that, who changed. I'm still them because I believed in what they were doing then, and I don't have anything to do with what they personally believe now. Okay, so I see that war still going on, and since they are incarcerated, dead, or whatever, I feel that's my job to continue the mission, to make sure that young brothers and sisters, particularly brothers, get up off their knees and start standing out like men. Even if they get knocked down, crawl back up on your knees and say, free the land.
There's a saying said they can't ride your back unless you're standing straight up, right?
Yes. Yes.
And just real quick, I just want to tell the people right there, this is one of his many books, Foundation of a Black Nation by Mario Bedelli. You know, you could probably, I don't know if you can find, you probably can't find this in the store, so you probably have to make some special contacts, right? You can't find this in anywhere else.
We can make sure they get them.
We can make sure that you can get a copy, because you can't get this at Barnes and Nobles or Amazon or none of that stuff. Believe that, you know. And I want to shift gears because, you know, we just want to let the people know out there that, you know, the Republic of New Africa, they weren't playing no games. You know, it was a real serious business, and we have the RNA 11. Here's another book about the RNA 11, and can you tell us a little bit about how they became the RNA, what took place for them to get to that point?
In Jackson.
Jackson where?
Mississippi.
Jackson, Mississippi.
First of all, let's talk about the RNA a little bit.
Okay.
A lot of people, we had a three-way split in the RNA. The good thing was that all of these different groups still use the same flag, you know, the whole thing. They just socially believed a different kind of way to accomplish this nation building thing. The bulk of us, particularly the military.
Before you go into that thing, what's the goal, and then you can see how the split. Why does, you know, how does that split the approach to that particular, because it's one goal, correct?
Yeah.
And what's the goal of the Republic of New Africa?
The goal of the Republic of New Africa is reparation in land.
Okay.
Okay. We know that looking at some of the other nations, African nations and stuff, that's supposed to be free, and white people still control the economical developments of the gold mines, the diamond mines. Brothers have to get naked in Africa. And we watched all this as they got so-called free. And in their own country, they got to go in a mine 2 miles deep, naked. And then you got to come up and they're gonna look up there, you know what, to make sure they don't have a diamond.
Yeah, over here they just there's no editing. So you want to say up there butthole? Yes, that's exactly where. Yeah. Right.
And we started questioning, particularly the RNA, and you know, all of that group of people, because they was already progressive in a lot of different areas. By the way, the Obadeli brothers family was not, they was actually bourgeois.
Okay.
But they believed that we couldn't be free unless all of us are free. They perpetuated that for years, and they traveled throughout the country. And so Queen Mother Moore was one of the, actually she was the first signer of the Declaration of Independence. So this nation was brought into existence with the hand of a woman that was the first signer of the Declaration of Independence to bring us into a nation state. Was Queen Mother Moore.
And what were those states that the RNA carved out?
The RNA decided that they wanted the original slave states. South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana was the actual cotton king states. That was the first way that they made their money. The other way that they made their money was putting people in the coal mines and ore mines of Alabama and Tennessee and those kind of places. So people would look at cotton and think that that was the only thing that we was enslaved for.
Right.
The people who was in the mines could only come up once or twice a month to see their families. They couldn't leave the mines. They had to stay in the mines. And like they had to pick cotton. So we got to get up off this idea that some kind of way the white man was so great that he run the steel mills. You know, the slaves run them too. You know? So that was the major reason that although the Obadeli brothers were born, you know, in Pennsylvania, they saw those lands and they studied the history that happened to all those black people down there, you know, in the so-called voting, you know, from 1867 until the 1950s. You know, I mean, about bubbles in the bar, soap, stupid stuff. So then we had SNCC in particular, knew that they couldn't read, knew that they just had the jobs. In fact, the so-called Black Panther Party symbol came from Louisville, Alabama, where Stokely Carmichael Torrey went down and saw a school and saw that big Black Panther on there, because they said that everybody had to have a symbol that was voted. So he brought in 240 people actually voted, because the so-called guards, the people who were watching the polls, couldn't read worth 2 cents anyway. So they slicked them out of that. So that's actually, the Panthers for Defense was already in existence, but the symbol was what that Stokely Carmichael brought to them when he became a member of the Black Panther Party.
And just for the record, because a lot of young people are watching this, when we say SNCC, it's the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. That way y'all can look that up, because our young people are not familiar with SNCC and a lot of the movements from the 60s. So go ahead.
And by the way, they were very young leaders. Rap Brown, or brother he was 16, 17 years old. He was one of the major leaders of that movement. That's because of where he was born and what he was under at that time. And the younger people, like they are today, there's no difference. It's a different scenario. Same problem, same condition. And they got these gadgets that we use, including what we're doing. And we're glad that we have people in our race that help put this stuff together so that we can talk to young people and other people. And you know, we need to stop saying that we got a generation gap. We don't have a generation gap. We have an information gap.
Okay.
That they tell young people, well, you don't need to do this, we don't need to do that. But what we need to start doing, young people and old people alike, but particularly young people, stop listening to Europeans telling you that you're an individual. And the way you can measure that, don't take my word for it, when they send the police to get you, they don't send one, they send 50 to get you. That's to show authority. That's to show that you're not equal, and that you're only playing in the field because they let you do it. And they misinform you by telling you this one over here is good, this one over here is bad. We are all in the same situation until we get power.
And the police remind you that they're not by themselves when they come by 10s and 20s, right?
Right, right. They got helicopters.
If it was individuals, it's just one cop would have just came, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. If it was like they say it is,
Right.
in the writing, but what they practice in reality is gang banging.
Right.
You know, we keep talking about gangs. The police is a gang, and Dr. Land told us everybody's a gang. He said that the preachers was a gang. He says a gang is anything where a group of people are together that don't